This mani right here was not at all what I planned. In fact, the mani that led up to that was a complete disaster. What's up, nail crew? It's Nicole, your fellow nail obsessed DIYer. Today, I'm going to show you all the ways that this mani went wrong and how I fixed it. My dip powders went wrong and my stamping went seriously wrong. So if you like watching somebody who likes to keep it real and makes a mess, then you are in the right place. I started out with dipping my colors. The first one I'm doing is a really light sheer pink shimmer. It's called Just a Dusting from OG Dip Powder. And the red that I'm going to be using, the maroon like berry color, is called You Have Their Future. That is from OG as well. So when I was dipping, I first realized that I missed the whole left side of my nail. And it was hard to see because the paint is so light and it's like, kind of similar like with the lighting to the side of my nails. But that's how I started. I started by missing a whole bunch of my left side. I thought, okay, this color is really light. We can make it work. Then I start on the wine color and I go to my thumb and somehow I miss the entire, I miss all this chunk of my left side of my nail on this hand. And my base, I did not apply it very evenly. So that's how I was starting out the mani. And I'm thinking, man, 2 nails down and both of them I messed up. So I'm like, all right, I gotta get the pointer finger correct. So I really carefully applied my color and it went on nicely. I'm like breathing a sigh of relief. Like maybe I just had a bad start to the mani. Like let's keep going and see how this goes, because let me tell you, it was not these colors, it was not the products, it wasn't the stamps. All of the messes that I made in this mani were all user error. And I wanted to show you guys, because I feel like it's been a little while since I've showed you one of my manis that I majorly messed up on, that this happened. So I'm working on my middle finger. And somehow I got a big clump of dip base back towards the back. And you can see when I was pouring over the powder, it's that spot that looks wetter than the rest of them. And there was a big clump of dip base that stuck there. So when I poured the powder over it, ended up giving this little lumpy look, but I was able to, when I added the second coat, I was able to cover it up. That's what I did. So if you mess up your first layer, it's okay. You can try to cover it with your second. And part of the reason why I am such a huge proponent of using clear dip powder as your last dip is because it fills in all the little nooks and crannies that might be a little bit off. And since it's clear, it just kind of fills the color in where you do any mistakes or the glitter or whatever. So I'm going through and I'm doing my second layer of this gorgeous wine color. And on my thumb, I was able to pretty much save all the spots that I had missed on the first layer and make it look a lot more even. When I'm doing the second layer on my pointer finger, that went well again. So I'm like, okay, I have one finger that's going well. My pointer and my pinky, or actually 2. My pointer and my pinky went pretty well. Something that's really important that I've realized when I make a mistake on a layer is to use a stiff nail brush and really dust off the excess powder. That is going to help that there's not any more excess than you already have stuck places. So I brushed off every single layer super well. I made sure they were totally dry. This way I wouldn't have any more excess dip stuck than I already did. You can see on my middle finger that for the most part, you can't tell there was a clump of base back at the back. I was able to cover it up with a second layer. And that's why I kept pouring the dip powder over my nail, hoping that it would soak in fully and kind of even out that little bump back at the back. Then I went through and brushed off really, really well after that second layer too. Anytime I'm doing my nails with dip liquids or really gels too, and I'm using dip powder, I try to brush off every drop of excess that I can. But when I make a mistake on the layer and it's kind of bumpy and lumpy, then I really try to make sure I get in there and don't leave a single drop of excess powder. Now I go through and I add the clear dip powder to the nails that I am not going to stamp on. So I want to have those done and activated so that I don't accidentally mess them up any more than what I already had. I added clear powder to my thumb, middle finger, and pinky, and then activated those. Let them dry for 2 minutes while I got out all my stamping supplies. So this is where the rest of the disasters are gonna start, okay? I had this idea in my head that I was gonna stamp and do a design, a plaid design with stamps. For some reason in my head, I know this is going to sound ridiculous. In my head, I literally was thinking that I was stamping straight lines. I know, the design that I'm stamping is not straight lines. It is a sweater design. This is a little sweater nail plate that I have here. In my head, I truly was thinking that these were straight lines. I have no idea why. I was exhausted. Like, I feel like I say this in every video. I'm always doing my nails at night, so like I make a lot of mistakes. Would my nails go better if I did them earlier in the day? Probably not, because that's just like my personality. I do things kind of wildly and goofy and don't always think. So even if I had done this during the day, I probably would have thought the same thing. So I'm getting all these stamps ready. And not only did I, in my head, think that these are like full solid lines, which I don't even know how I thought that, I was also thinking that I grabbed my darker gray. I have a dark gray and then I have a light gray. I grabbed my light gray for this. I had wanted to use the dark gray. Maybe if I had used the dark gray, it wouldn't have been so bad. And I spent all this time prepping all my stamps. I literally had like almost every stamp out that I have. I have a couple stampers that I keep just for when I'm doing decals, and then the rest are for stamping. I do need to get more, because if I'm going to start stamping more, which is my plan, I want like 10 more stampers, just so that when I do like more intricate designs, I don't have to keep like cleaning the plate and doing the same stamp, using the same stamper over and over. So I was getting all my little lines ready, and then I was cleaning off in between as I needed to. Whenever you're stamping, you want to make sure that you don't put an excess amount of liquids on your stamp. You want to put just enough to cover the image, and then you want to scrape downwards. For me, I found that works the best. I like to scrape down no more than 2 times, quickly and pretty hard, just to make sure that you are not leaving too much polish on. And when you are rolling your stamper over the design, you want to roll it really lightly. A light touch is great for when you're rolling the stamper over, or else you won't pick up the image, or you could smear the image. Now, I even ended up using a little replacement topper for one of my stampers because I was running out of actual stampers, and it still worked. And so I probably did, I think I did probably like 7 or 8 stamps before I realized, oh shoot, I had used the light gray, but at this point it was too late. I was committed, okay? I was determined to make this like plaid look kind of work that I was going for. So I had all my stamps ready. In between, when I needed to clean off my stamping plate, you take acetone on a little cotton ball, and then I use tweezers to rub it over the stamping plate, and then I use isopropyl alcohol on another cotton ball and then wipe it off as well to make sure your plate is really, really clean. I finished getting all my stamps ready for my plaid design and do a layer of sticky base over my entire nail. And at this point, I still hadn't realized that I didn't have straight lines. It wasn't until I actually started stamping my nails that I realized, oh my gosh, I grabbed little sweater images instead of straight lines. On top of that, I used a light gray that is barely showing up over my pink. And I had realized that I used a light gray a little bit earlier, but I really thought it would show up more. But when I actually go and I stamp them on, it is not showing up. But I was already started, so I kept going. And I get to the part where I'm adding the black little sweater lines, and I stamped the first one and realized you could only basically see the black line. And then I stamped the second one, and it was super crooked. And at that point I thought, forget it. There is no way that this is gonna work. I took a flexible file and very gently buffed the stamp off my nail because I hadn't activated it yet. So I had to be really, really careful about not using a file. I was just used like the flexible files are basically a giant buffing block. I used that to buff off the stamp, wiped it off with alcohol, looked at my stamp plate and thought, okay, I can do these really simple sweater designs on the 2 nails that I have left instead of a plaid, and it'll end up looking really nice. So I went through and I got both of those stamped, and they went really well. They picked right up on my stamper. They were, the images were very easy to pick up. This is from a set of 6 stamping plates that I got off Amazon, which Amazon plates are hit or miss. You never know if you're going to get a really good set or a craptastic set. But this set of 6 for $9 was like so good. I used it in another video where I stamped the little penguins. The ring finger went well, and then I'm going to do my pointer finger, and I did not roll the stamper on the entire nail. I don't know what I was thinking. I just squished the stamp down quickly, ended up not covering the entire nail. But by then I was like, oh crap, what am I gonna do? So I tried to put a little bit of excess sticky base on the side and tried to squeeze some of the excess on that side there. You know what? It really didn't work, but at this point I was exhausted and I was like, oh crap, I still have to do another hand. We're just going with it. So I covered my 2 nails with clear dip powder so that I could finish my mani like normal using my dip liquids that I absolutely love to do. If I have you ready to start stamping, make sure you check out this next video. We're gonna go through and I will show you exactly how to apply dip powder over your stamp nails without having to use any gels, and you can finish your mani like normal. Thanks for joining me today, nail crew.